You hear it everywhere. On the news, scrolling through your feed, maybe even whispered at your local coffee shop. Late-stage capitalism. It's become the go-to phrase to describe the state of our economies, our societies, maybe even our souls. But what does it actually mean? Is it just another buzzword thrown around by folks with strong opinions and even stronger Twitter fingers? Or is there something more, something real behind this term that's capturing the anxieties of a generation? That's what we're here to unpack. We're diving deep into the world of late-stage capitalism. We're going beyond the hashtags and hot takes to separate fact from fiction, hype from reality. So buckle up, grab your thinking caps, and get ready for a crash course on the economic forces shaping our lives. This is late-stage capitalism. Unpacking the economic reality. First things first, let's define our terms. Late-stage capitalism isn't some official economic designation you'd find in a textbook. It's more of a descriptive term, a way to capture a set of trends and anxieties we see playing out in many high-income countries. Think of it like this. If capitalism were a movie, we're in the final act. The stakes are high, the plot twists are coming fast, and the ending is far from certain. Some characters are hoarding all the wealth and power, while others are struggling just to survive. Now, this isn't just some abstract economic theory. We're talking about real-world impacts on people's lives, from the cost of housing to the stability of jobs to the very fabric of our communities. So what are the hallmarks of this so-called late stage? Think skyrocketing inequality, stagnant wages, shrinking middle classes, and a sense that the system is rigged against everyday people. Sound familiar? Let's break down late-stage capitalism. It's about wealth concentration and stagnant wages, the final act of this economic drama. Wealth that buys islands, not just iPhones, and the rise of precarious work. Flexibility, but not the good kind. Now, this concentration of wealth at the top isn't just bad optics. It has real consequences. When a small elite holds so much economic power, it can warp our political systems, our media, and even our culture. It's like a game of Monopoly, where one player starts with all the properties and the rest of us are just trying not to land on boardwalk. This concentration of power can lead to policies that favor the wealthy at the expense of everyone else. Think tax cuts for the rich, while social programs for the poor get slashed. It's a recipe for inequality on steroids. And it's not just about government policies. This economic inequality seeps into every aspect of our lives. It affects our access to healthcare, education, and even our ability to live in safe and healthy communities. Basically, the more unequal our societies become, the more unstable and unsustainable they become for everyone, even those at the top. The symptoms from stagnant wages to social unrest. So, how does this late-stage capitalism manifest in our everyday lives? Well, those stagnant wages we talked about, they mean people are struggling to afford basic necessities like housing, healthcare, and education. The American dream is starting to feel like a fever dream. And when people are struggling, it can lead to a whole host of social problems. We're talking about rising crime rates, political polarization, and a general sense of anxiety and distrust. It's like the social fabric is starting to fray at the edges. Another symptom of late-stage capitalism is the erosion of public services. As governments prioritize tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy, essential services like healthcare, education, and public transportation are often underfunded and neglected. This creates a vicious cycle where the people who rely on these services the most are the ones who suffer the most. And it further entrenches inequality, making it even harder for people to climb the economic ladder. It's a system that seems designed to keep people down. Shared challenges, different scales. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds pretty bleak, but isn't this just a US problem? Well, my Canadian friends, don't get too comfy just yet. Canada isn't exactly immune to these trends. We like to think of ourselves as the kinder, gentler neighbor to the north, right? But even in the Great White North, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is widening. Housing costs have gone completely bonkers. Young people are priced out of homeownership. Alert! The avocado toast is losing. And it's not just about housing. Stagnant wages, precarious work. These plagues of late-stage capitalism are infecting the Canadian economy too. We might not be at US levels yet, but the trend lines are pointing in the wrong direction. The 1% and everyone else examining the wealth gap. Let's talk numbers, shall we? In the US, the top 1% of earners are basically swimming in cash Scrooge McDuck style. They hold more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Meanwhile, in Canada, the wealth gap isn't quite as dramatic, but it's still pretty darn significant. The richest 1% of Canadians own more wealth than the bottom 70%. This level of inequality isn't just morally wrong, it's economically unsustainable. The Canadian case inequality's quiet creep. Now, Canada, we need to talk. Our social safety net is strong, but inequality is creeping up. We're seeing it in housing, healthcare, and politics. The Canadian dream is slipping away for many. Priced out, the housing crisis unfolds. Let's talk about a topic that's enough to give anyone sleepless nights: housing. Remember the days when owning a home was considered a realistic goal, a cornerstone of the middle-class dream? Yeah, those days seem about as distant as dial-up internet. In both the US and Canada, we're facing a full-blown housing crisis. Prices are skyrocketing, wages are stagnating, and finding an affordable place to live feels like searching for a unicorn riding a roller coaster. It's not going to end well. This isn't just about millennials wanting avocado toast and fancy lattes. This is about people from all walks of life, young families, seniors, essential workers, being priced out of their communities. It's about the very fabric of our societies starting to unravel. So, what's driving this housing frenzy? Well, there's no single villain in this story. It's a complex web of factors, including low interest rates, a shortage of supply, and of course, good old-fashioned speculation. The Canadian squeeze from coast to coast. Okay, Canada, let's talk real estate. Remember when Vancouver and Toronto were just regular cities, not playgrounds for the ultra-wealthy? Yeah, those days are long gone. Housing prices in our major cities have reached levels that would make even a lumberjack blush. But here's the thing, it's not just Vancouver and Toronto feeling the squeeze. From Halifax to Victoria, from Montreal to Calgary, the cost of housing is becoming increasingly out of reach for everyday Canadians. It's like a game of musical chairs where the music has stopped and there aren't enough chairs to go around. We're talking about young people delaying major life milestones like starting families because they can't afford to buy a home. We're talking about seniors being forced to sell their homes because they can no longer afford property taxes. And let's not forget about the rental market, which is basically a bloodbath. Finding an affordable rental in a desirable neighborhood is about as likely as spotting a polar bear wearing a Hawaiian shirt. The American dream is starting to look more like a rental agreement. Homeownership was the ultimate symbol of success, but that dream is slipping away. The housing crisis is hitting hard. Millennials and Gen Z face stagnant wages and high housing costs. It's like climbing a mountain with a backpack full of rocks. Renting is becoming unaffordable too. Rent eats up a huge chunk of incomes. The housing crisis affects the entire economy. It's harder for businesses to attract workers, increasing homelessness and poverty, fueling frustration and resentment in politics and communities. Let's talk about the gig economy, short-term contracts, freelance gigs, and part-time hustles reshaping work. It seems cool. Be your own boss, set your own hours. But there's a darker reality. Lack of job security, unpredictable incomes, and eroded benefits. It's seeping into almost every industry, becoming the new normal.
Breaking news.
Remember the good old days when you could graduate high school, get a factory job, and live a comfortable middle-class life? Yeah, those days are about as gone as bell-bottoms and cassette tapes. We're now living in an era of job polarization, where the middle class is shrinking faster than a pair of jeans after a trip through the dryer. High-skilled jobs in tech, finance, and healthcare thrive, while low-skilled jobs in retail and food service struggle. Middle-income jobs that used to bridge the gap, they're disappearing faster than a plate of poutine at a hockey game. A system out of balance, the human cost of labor trends. Labor trends create stress and uncertainty. Precarious jobs lead to higher depression and anxiety. Families and communities feel the strain. Financial struggles lead to social unrest. We need to address this for a just society. The rise of financialization. Financialization is the growing dominance of financial markets in our economies. Businesses now focus on making money from money rather than products. This shift can lead to short-term focus and neglect of workers and innovation. Short-term gains, long-term pains, the perils of stock buybacks. Stock buybacks are popular among corporations, especially in the U.S. Companies use profits to buy back shares, boosting earnings per share. This seems beneficial, but it diverts funds from research, development, and wages. Critics argue it enriches shareholders at the expense of long-term growth. Beyond the bottom line, the need for a new corporate ethos. We need a new ethos, recognizing corporate responsibility to workers, communities, and the planet. Think of businesses as social enterprises, not just profit machines. Some companies are already leading the way. A just and sustainable economy is within reach. Money talks, the influence of wealth on politics. Money talks. In late-stage capitalism, it's shouting from the rooftops. Wealthy individuals and corporations pour money into elections, expecting favorable treatment. It's like legalized bribery, eroding our democracies. The revolving door between government and industry worsens the problem. Lobbying and legislation tilting the scales of power. Lobbying represents industry interests, but it can drown out everyday citizens. Armies of lobbyists, often former officials, influence legislation. They use connections and money to benefit their clients. Policies often favor corporations, undermining protections. The system is rigged, and people are demanding change. Restoring the balance, reclaiming our democracy. How do we fix this mess? Get big money out of politics, enact campaign finance reforms, close loopholes, and increase transparency. Democracy requires active participation from all of us. Make our voices heard and demand a system that works for everyone. The human toll: stress, anxiety, and despair. Mental health often gets overlooked in discussions of economic systems. Economic insecurity takes a heavy toll on mental well-being. Increased stress, anxiety, and depression are rampant. People struggle to cope with a system that feels rigged. Beyond the statistics, a crisis of connection and meaning. Rising rates of depression and anxiety tell only part of the story. We're facing a sense of alienation and disconnection from our work, communities, and ourselves. It's a crisis of meaning and purpose. We need systemic solutions to address this mental health crisis. A system in need of repair. Can capitalism be fixed? Can we fix capitalism? We've exposed its flaws and human toll. Can we tweak it to work for everyone, or is it beyond repair? Some say it's the best system, driving innovation. Others argue it's unsustainable, leading to collapse. What's the answer? Redistributing the pie, exploring progressive solutions. Let's dive into some policy proposals to address late-stage capitalism. These ideas aim to redistribute wealth and power, creating a fairer society. A wealth tax on ultra-wealthy assets is one such idea. Revenue could fund social programs and public services. Universal basic income is another proposal, providing financial security for all. Beyond Band-Aid solutions, reimagining the social contract. We need to fundamentally reimagine the social contract between governments, corporations, and citizens. Embrace stakeholder capitalism. Corporations have a responsibility to their workers, communities, and the planet. Rethink our relationship with work and explore new models of work-life balance. Create an economy that works for everyone. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together. The crossroads choices for a more equitable future. So where does this leave us? We've seen the wealth gap, precarious work, and eroding democracy. But there's hope. People are demanding change, social movements are rising, and there's a commitment to a just world. The path forward won't be easy, but the stakes are too high to settle for less.